Republicans in Congress raising concerns of a possible conflict of interest for Attorney General Merrick Garland because his son-in-law, Shan Tanner, has ties to an education outfit that is pushing woke lesson plans in public schools. The GOP lawmakers say the company could benefit after a memo from the DOJ instructed the FBI to look into alleged threats against teachers. Andy McCarthy is a former assistant U.S. attorney and a Fox News contributor. He joins us now. Andy, from the 30,000-foot view, what's your take on this?
Well, John, the Justice Department usually has very broad standards for the appearance of impropriety that would trigger at least the inquiry into whether there was a conflict of interest. Recall that Attorney General Sessions ended up having a very sweeping recusal from the Russiagate investigation, even though he was never a subject of it. The Attorney General has a lot of basically flexibility about whether he'll recuse himself from something, but I really don't think his recusal or non-recusal would not have affected this policy, which is an ideological policy, not a conflict-driven policy.
Yeah, so Republican Senators Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, and Marsha Blackburn do believe that there's a potential conflict of interest here. They sent a letter to the Attorney General, which they published as well, saying that there could be some conflict with the ethical guidelines here. Here's what the DOJ ethics guidelines say. Quote, an employee is prohibited from participating in any matter in which he has a financial interest. In addition to an employee's own financial interest, certain interests are considered his imputed to him, such as those of his spouse, minor children, and business partners. An employee may not participate without authorization in a particular matter, having specific parties that could affect the financial interests of members of her household. It doesn't specifically mention sons-in-law, but would a son-in-law be covered under that general umbrella?
It's certainly something, John, that because the standard really is appearance of impropriety, it's something that would trigger an investigation. But I really think that, what we ought to be focused on is the fact that, let's say Garland did recuse himself, even though I don't think he would. If Lisa Monaco, who's the deputy AG, was in charge of the Biden Justice Department, you'd still have the same memo. And I think if Garland did not consider a potential conflict of interest, that's just additional evidence of how rash and thoughtless this memo that he issued was. And there may be a conflict issue, but I don't think that's the main problem here.
Now, the company in question here is called Panorama Education. It pushes a curriculum of social emotional learning. Now, SEL's got its supporters. It's also got its detractors who say, look, schools should be involved in teaching kids the 3 R's and shouldn't be worried about their social or emotional development, that to do that is representing a new age nanny state. Some people have said this is critical race theory. Panorama Education says it's not, in a statement saying, quote, Panorama Education is not affiliated with any particular academic or legal philosophy, including critical race theory. Panorama not connected to CRT and is not a tool for teaching CRT. So this is the debate that is swirling around Panorama Education. But the bottom line here is that is the DOJ targeting parents who disagree with something that the Attorney General's son-in-law is potentially making money on?
Yeah, that's exactly right, John. You could quibble about the labels, about whether the substance of what they're peddling is consistent with critical race theory or not. But the whole idea of having a standard that looks at the appearance of impropriety is supposed to be that all these substantive debates that you just well laid out are beside the point. The idea is that Garland's son-in-law is profiting lucratively from peddling this stuff to the schools. And Garland, even though the Justice Department doesn't appear to have jurisdiction to do what it's done, is sicking the FBI on parents who are dissenting against these kinds of materials. That should be enough to at least trigger an inquiry into whether there's a conflict.
Certainly raises a lot of questions. Andy McCarthy, good to see you today. Thanks for kicking us off on this Monday.
Thanks, John.